The cathedral doors exploded open with such force that the ancient hinges groaned in protest. 300 wedding guests turned as one, their collective gasp echoing through St. Peter's Cathedral in the heart of Victoria Island, Lagos. Tund Adeyemi stood in the doorway, his designer suit torn at the shoulder, his white shirt stained with what looked like blood. In his trembling hands, he clutched a brown envelope that seemed to burn his fingers. His chest heaved with exertion, sweat dripping down his face despite the cathedral's air conditioning. "Stop this wedding." His voice cut through the organ music like a knife through silk. "Papa, you cannot marry this woman." The bride, Shade Ogunlai, stood frozen at the altar in her custom-made wedding gown. The dress had cost 12 million naira, imported Italian lace with 20,000 Swarovski crystals hand-sewn into the bodice. Her makeup, done by Lagos's most expensive artist, couldn't hide the flash of pure terror that crossed her beautiful face. Beside her, Chief Bode Adeyemi, 65 years old and one of Nigeria's most successful real estate developers, gripped the altar railing. His agbada, made from the finest Aso oak, seemed to weigh heavy on his shoulders suddenly. "Tund," his voice boomed with the authority that had built a business empire worth billions. "What is the meaning of this madness?" The congregation stirred like disturbed water. Women in expensive geli whispered behind jeweled hands. Men in flowing agbada and designer suits leaned forward in their seats. Phones appeared like magic, already recording what promised to be the society scandal of the year. Pastor Emmanuel, who had been presiding over Lagos high society weddings for 30 years, raised his hands for calm. "Perhaps we should. She's been stealing from you, Papa." Tund stumbled forward down the aisle, his Salvatore Ferragamo shoes leaving dusty prints on the pristine white carpet. For months, maybe longer. And that's not even the worst part. The best man, Chief Adeyemi's business partner of 20 years, Alhaji Musa Bello, stepped forward protectively. "Tund, you're clearly unwell. Let's take you outside, Anne." "Don't touch me." Tund's voice cracked with desperation. "Alhaji Musa, you of all people should know the truth. Or maybe you already do." Something in those words made the older man freeze. A flicker of something, guilt, fear, crossed his face before his expression smoothed into concerned confusion. Shade found her voice, soft and wounded. "Tund, my dear, I know you've been under so much stress since losing your position at the bank. The drinking, the gambling debts. Your father and I have been so worried about you." The sympathy in her voice was perfect. Several guests nodded sadly. Everyone knew that Tund had been fired from his position as investment director at United Bank of Africa 6 months ago. The rumor mill had been vicious about his supposed descent into addiction. "Liar." Tund's voice echoed off the cathedral's stone walls. "I was fired because someone reported me for asking questions about irregular transactions. Transactions from Papa's accounts that I couldn't explain." Chief Adeyemi's face had gone pale beneath his dark skin. "What transactions?" "Papa, she's been meeting with Alhaji Musa, your business partner, your best friend, the man who was supposed to be your groomsman today." Tund pulled his phone from his pocket with shaking hands. "I followed them to the Intercontinental Hotel 3 days ago. Room 817. You want to explain these photos, Shade?" He threw a stack of photographs toward the altar. They scattered across the marble floor like fallen leaves, and even from a distance, the wedding guests could see they showed a woman who looked remarkably like Shade in intimate embrace with a man. Chief Adeyemi bent down slowly, his knees creaking with the effort. His hands trembled as he picked up photograph after photograph. His breathing became labored, the same shallow gasp that had preceded his heart attack 2 years ago. "Papa, please, you need to calm down." Tund started forward. "How much?" Chief Adeyemi's voice was barely a whisper, but it silenced the entire cathedral. Tund swallowed hard. 47 million naira so far. "But Papa, that's not." 47 million. The number seemed to echo in the vast space. Chief Adeyemi stood slowly, photographs falling from his fingers. His eyes, which had looked at Shade with such love and trust, now burned with something else entirely. "And Musa, my brother in all but blood." Alhaji Musa was already moving toward the side door, his voluminous Igbada billowing behind him. But Tund had anticipated this. Uncle Biodun. Tund called to his father's head of security, a former police officer who stood at the back of the church. Don't let him leave. Two security guards moved to block Alhaji Musa's path. For a moment, the older man seemed ready to fight. Then his shoulders sagged, and he turned back with a smile that made everyone's blood run cold. Too late, old friend, he said to Chief Adeyemi. The money's already been transferred to accounts in Dubai and the Cayman Islands. By the time anyone sorts through the paperwork, it will have been moved a dozen more times. I'll be on a plane to London in 3 hours, and you'll never see me again. Why? Chief Adeyemi's voice broke. We built our businesses together. I trusted you with everything. My passwords, my accounts, my future. You were my wife's bedside when she died. You held my hand at her funeral. Because you had too much. Alhaji Musa's composure shattered like glass. For 30 years, I watched you succeed while I struggled. Your developments in Lekki, Banana Island, Ikoyi, worth billions while my projects failed. You with your awards and recognition, while I was always Chief Adeyemi's partner, never Alhaji Musa Bello, successful businessman. So you stole from me? Chief Adeyemi's voice was dangerous now, and used this woman too. Shade suddenly bolted toward the side entrance, her elaborate wedding dress making running difficult. But Tun was faster. He grabbed her arm, and for the first time, her carefully maintained facade crumbled completely. Let me go, she hissed, and the cultured voice was gone, replaced by something harder, crueler. You have no idea what you've done, boy. No idea at all. Call the police, Chief Adeyemi said quietly to his sister, Mrs. Funmi Okafor, who sat in the front row. Then louder, someone call the police. Now, as Mrs. Funmi fumbled for her phone, Shade laughed. It was a sound that made everyone's skin crawl. Not the gentle laughter of a woman in love, but something cold and calculating. You think this is over? She looked directly at Chief Adeyemi, and for the first time, he saw her clearly. Not the caring woman who had nursed him through his recovery from heart surgery. Not the gentle soul who had won over his children and grandchildren, but a stranger wearing a mask that had finally slipped. You think calling the police will save you? You have no idea what's coming for your family. This was never about the money. It was never even about Musa's revenge. This is so much bigger than you can imagine. The side door burst open again, and 3 men in expensive suits entered. They weren't police officers. Tund recognized them immediately. They worked for Alhaji Musa's private security company, the same firm that handled sensitive matters for some of Lagos's most dangerous businessmen. Nobody move, the tallest one said, his hand resting meaningfully inside his jacket. This is family business now. The atmosphere in the cathedral shifted from shocked confusion to genuine fear. The 3 security men weren't making threats. Their presence alone was threatening enough. These were professionals, and everyone in Lagos high society knew what that meant. Chief Adeyemi stepped protectively in front of his son, and despite being in his 60s, the old man still carried the commanding presence that had built an empire from nothing. Funmi, he said to his sister without taking his eyes off the security men. Take the children outside. Now. But before Mrs. Funmi could move, 8-year-old Dammy, Tun's daughter, was already crying in the front row. Daddy, what's happening? The emotional manipulation was working exactly as planned. Even now, caught in her web of lies, Shade was using the fear of children as a weapon. This doesn't have to be difficult, Shade said, straightening her wedding veil with trembling fingers. The diamonds in her headpiece, a gift from Chief Adeyemi worth 8 million naira, caught the light. Sign the papers, Chief. Transfer the remaining assets, and everyone walks away safely. You planned this. The realization hit Chief Adeyemi like a physical blow. The heart surgery, the recovery, getting close to my grandchildren. All of it. Shade's smile was the coldest thing anyone in that cathedral had ever seen. I needed you weak, dependent, grateful. You were so eager to give me access to everything. Your accounts, your businesses, your will. You even named me as beneficiary on your life insurance policies. $30 million in insurance, Tun said, pulling out his tablet. Papa, show everyone the video. Show them what I recorded. From the back of the church, Tun's younger brother Femi stood up, holding a laptop. The video began playing on the cathedral's projection screen, meant for displaying wedding photos, now showing something far more sinister. The footage showed Shade and Al-Haji Musa in what was clearly Chief Adeyemi's own study at his Ikoyi mansion. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. Shade's voice filled the cathedral. Once the wedding is over and I have full legal rights to everything, we can eliminate the old man. Make it look like another heart attack. His health is already fragile. No one will question it. The collective gasp from the wedding guests was like a wave crashing against shore. You are going to kill me, Chief Adeyemi said softly, the words barely audible but carrying the weight of absolute betrayal. Still might, one of the security men said, stepping closer. His hand moved toward his jacket. But Tun had been planning for this moment. As the man reached for his weapon, the cathedral's main doors opened again. This time, it was Detective Inspector Kayamaka Nwosu of the Lagos State Police, followed by 6 armed officers. Everyone on the ground. Now, the security men hesitated, caught between their orders and the reality of facing actual law enforcement. In Lagos, private security guards, no matter how well-connected, didn't win against the police in public confrontations. You called them before the wedding? Shade accused, staring at Tund with pure hatred. I called them 3 weeks ago when I first discovered what you were doing, Tund replied. But not just about the money, Shade. Tell Papa about your other family. Chief Adeyemi looked confused. What other family? She's married, Tund said flatly. Has been for 14 years. Her husband lives in London with their 4 children. She's been sending him money, Papa's money, for their school fees, their mortgage in Kensington, their luxury lifestyle. Shade's face went ashen. That's impossible. You couldn't have found your phone, Shade. You left it charging in Papa's bedroom 3 days ago. Did you know iCloud automatically backs up everything, including all your WhatsApp messages to my beloved husband Samuel? The wedding guests erupted in shocked murmurs. Bigamy wasn't just betrayal. It was a serious criminal offense. Mrs. Ogunlai, Detective Nwosu said, producing handcuffs, or should I say Mrs. Samuel Okoye, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and bigamy. As the handcuffs clicked around Shade's wrists, her expensive wedding bangles jangling against the metal, she looked directly at Chief Adeyemi with eyes full of venom. This isn't over. You have no idea who you're dealing with. This network spans 6 countries. We've done this 12 times before. Did you really think you were special? That I actually loved you? Is that a threat? Detective Nwosu asked sharply. It's a promise, Shade hissed. Your family will pay for this disruption. All of you. As Shade was led away, Al-Haji Musa tried one last time to reach the door. But Chief Adeyemi's voice stopped him. Musa. The older man turned slowly. 30 years, Chief Adeyemi said, his voice heavy with grief. I loved you like a brother. When your daughter needed surgery, who paid for it? When your business was failing, who gave you that contract that saved you? When your wife died, who sat with you every night for weeks? And you never let me forget it. Al-Haji Musa exploded. Every favor was a reminder of how much more successful you were. Every time you helped me, it was another weight on my shoulders, another reminder that I would never be your equal. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to take what should have been mine all along. Detective Nwosu gestured to her officers. Take him. As Al-Haji Musa was handcuffed and led away, he turned back one final time. Check your offshore accounts, Chief. Check them very carefully. We didn't just take what was in Nigeria. Chief Adeyemi's face went gray. He staggered, and Tun caught him. Papa, someone call an ambulance. The cathedral descended into chaos. Guests were calling for doctors, security was trying to clear the aisles, children were crying, and in the midst of it all, Chief Adeyemi clutched his chest, his breathing becoming more labored. My pills, he gasped. In my jacket pocket. Tun fumbled for the medication, but his hands were shaking too badly. Mrs. Funmi took over, placing the nitroglycerin under her brother's tongue, while someone else called for emergency medical services. "Papa, stay with me," Tun pleaded. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I had to do it this way, but I had to stop her before." "You saved my life," Chief Adeyemi managed to say. "Thank you, my son." As the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, Detective Nwosu approached Tund. "We need to talk. There's more you need to know." "Not now. My father." "Mr. Adeyemi, your father isn't the only target. We've been investigating this network for 8 months. There are at least 7 other families in immediate danger across West Africa. And by exposing this operation today, you may have put yourself and your family at serious risk." Tund looked at his daughter, still crying in his ex-wife's arms. He looked at his father, being loaded onto a stretcher. He looked at the faces of 300 wedding guests who had just witnessed one of the most dramatic events in Lagos' social history. "What kind of risk?" he asked quietly. Detective Nwosu's expression was grim. "The kind that doesn't end just because we arrested 2 people. This network has resources you can't imagine. They've killed before to protect their operation, and they don't forgive disruptions. St. Nicholas Hospital in Lagos was one of the best private medical facilities in West Africa. Its cardiac unit had saved countless lives, including Chief Adeyemi's 2 years ago when his first heart attack had nearly killed him. Now, as Tun sat in the waiting room, he couldn't shake the horrible irony that the woman who had been at his father's bedside during that recovery had been planning his death all along. Detective Nwosu sat beside him, her tablet open, showing him photographs that made his blood run cold. "This is Mercy Taiwo," she said, pointing to a photo of a beautiful woman in her 30s. "She married Chief Johnson Oladiel of Abuja 3 years ago. 6 months after the wedding, he died of an apparent heart attack. She inherited 200 million naira. She, Tun guessed. Same woman. Different name, different hair color, same pattern. And this," she swiped to another photo, "is Grace Okoro. She married Mr. Felix Namdi of Port Harcourt 18 months ago. He's currently in a coma after a mysterious illness. Doctors can't explain it, but his accounts have been systematically drained. Also shade. We think so, but we're still confirming. She's very good with disguises, very careful about leaving evidence. And here's the thing. She's never the one who approaches the target initially. There's always a trusted friend or business partner who makes the introduction. Someone like Alhaji Musa." Tun felt sick. "How many? That we know of?" 12 families across Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Senegal. Total estimated theft, over 3 billion naira. But we suspect there are more we haven't connected yet. My father almost became number 13. Your father almost became one of the dead ones. The living victims are the lucky ones." The waiting room door opened, and Dr. Akinwale emerged, still in his surgical scrubs. Tun jumped to his feet. "Your father is stable," the doctor said immediately, seeing the panic in Tun's eyes. "But Mr. Adeyemi, we need to talk about his condition." They moved to a private consultation room. Dr. Akinwale pulled up Chief Adeyemi's chart on his computer, his expression grave. "Your father's heart is in worse condition than we thought. The stress of today's events has caused significant damage. But there's something else, something I don't understand." "What?" "When we ran his blood work, we found traces of several medications that shouldn't be there. Beta blockers in doses high enough to cause his heart to work harder than it should. Blood thinners that could have caused a catastrophic hemorrhage. Small amounts, administered over time, creating cumulative damage that looked like natural deterioration. Someone was poisoning him," Tun said flatly. Dr. Akinwale nodded slowly. "That's what it looks like. If the wedding had gone forward, if the stress had continued, if these medications had continued to be administered, I'd say your father had maybe 3 months before his heart would have given out completely, and it would have looked entirely natural." The room spun. Tund gripped the edge of the desk to steady himself. "I need to see him," he said. Chief Adeyemi looked small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and whirred, monitoring every heartbeat. His eyes opened when Tund entered, and he managed a weak smile. "My son, the hero," he said, his voice raspy. "Papa, I'm so sorry. If I had figured it out sooner. You saved my life." Chief Adeyemi reached for Tun's hand. The doctor told me about the poison. She was killing me slowly, and I was thanking her for taking care of me. You couldn't have known. I should have. I should have seen the signs. But I was lonely, Tund. After your mother died, the house felt so empty. When Shade came into my life, when Musa introduced her to me at that charity gala, she filled that emptiness. She listened to my stories. She laughed at my jokes. She made me feel young again. That's what they count on, Detective Nwosu said, entering the room. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Chief Adeyemi, I need to ask you some questions while events are still fresh in your mind. Over the next hour, Chief Adeyemi described his relationship with Shade, how Alhaji Musa had introduced them 18 months ago, claiming she was the daughter of an old friend, how she had been perfect, cultured, educated, from a good family, how she had gradually become indispensable, helping manage his schedule, accompanying him to social events, eventually moving into his home as his fiancée. She knew everything, Chief Adeyemi said. My passwords, my account numbers, my business partners. I trusted her completely. Did you ever meet her family? Detective Nwosu asked. She said her parents were dead, that she had no siblings, that she was alone in the world just like me. All lies. Her real name is Shade Okoye, formerly Shade Adebayo. She's 42 years old, married with 4 children in London. Her husband works in finance. Their eldest daughter just started at Oxford University. The betrayal hit Chief Adeyemi afresh. She has children at Oxford? While she was planning to kill me for my money. The tuition alone is £40,000 per year. Where do you think that money was coming from? Chief Adeyemi closed his eyes, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. I was going to change my will, make her the primary beneficiary. Everything was going to go to her, with provisions for my children and grandchildren, of course, but she would have controlled it all. If you had signed those papers, Detective Nwosu said gently, you would have been dead within weeks, and your family would have been fighting her in court for years, probably losing most of the estate in legal fees. Tun's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, your daughter won't be safe at her school. Neither will your father in that hospital. Think carefully about pressing charges. Asterisk. He showed it to Detective Nwosu, who immediately called for additional security. This is what I was afraid of, she said. The network is responding. They can't let this exposure stand. It threatens their entire operation. What do we do? Tund asked. We move your father to a secure location as soon as he's stable enough. We put protection on your entire family. And, Mr. Adeyemi, she looked at Tund seriously, you need to decide how far you're willing to take this. Because if you testify against Shade and Alhaji Musa, if you help us dismantle this network, you become a target for life. Before Tund could respond, Chief Adeyemi spoke up. He testifies. We all do. This network has destroyed families across West Africa. If we have the power to stop them, we have the responsibility to do so. Papa, think about Dammy, about Femi, about... I am thinking about them. I'm thinking about what kind of world I want them to grow up in. One where criminals can rob and murder with impunity, or one where good people stand up to evil, even when it's dangerous. Tund looked at his father, weak, betrayed, heart damaged from slow poisoning, and saw the strength that had built an empire, raised a family, and refused to be broken even by ultimate betrayal. We testify, Tund agreed. That night, as armed police stood guard outside Chief Adeyemi's hospital room, Tund sat by his father's bedside watching the news coverage of what was already being called the wedding of betrayal. His phone rang constantly, journalists wanting interviews, friends expressing shock and support, business associates worried about the stability of Chief Adeyemi's companies. But one call stood out, an unknown number from Ghana. Mr. Adeyemi? A woman's voice, cultured, educated. My name is Ama Mensa. You don't know me, but I'm a lawyer in Accra. I've been tracking this network for 3 years since they destroyed my uncle's life. What you did today, stopping that wedding, exposing them publicly, you may have just saved my current client's life. He's a wealthy widower who is about to marry a woman I believe is part of the same network. Who is she? She calls herself Blessing Okafor. But I've seen your photos of Shade Ogunlai. Mr. Adeyemi, I think they might be the same person. The press conference 3 days later was held at the Lagos Continental Hotel. Chief Adeyemi, still weak but determined, sat at the center of the table flanked by Tund, Detective Nwosu, and Amaminsa, who had flown in from Ghana with evidence that connected the dots across West Africa. The ballroom was packed with journalists from across the continent. Cameras flashed constantly as Chief Adeyemi began to speak. Good afternoon. My name is Chief Bode Adeyemi. 3 days ago, I was about to marry a woman who had systematically robbed me of 47 million naira and was planning to kill me for my life insurance and remaining assets. Today, I stand before you not in shame, but in determination. This cannot continue. Amaminsa took over, displaying a presentation that connected 12 different cases across 4 countries. Each slide showed a different victim, some alive, some dead, all betrayed by people they trusted completely. This is organized crime operating at the highest levels, she explained. The network identifies wealthy widowers through social circles, business associations, and charity events. A trusted friend or associate makes the introduction. The woman, always beautiful, always perfect for the target, moves in slowly. Marriage is the goal, but the real target is the will and life insurance. How much has been stolen? One journalist asked. Over 3 billion naira that we can prove. But the real damage isn't just financial. It's the destruction of families, the trauma to children who lose parents to staged accidents, the corruption of trust that holds our society together. Chief Adeyemi spoke again. I'm here today to make an announcement. I'm creating a foundation, the Adeyemi Foundation for Financial Crime Prevention. We will work with law enforcement across Africa to identify and stop these networks. We will provide resources to victims' families. And we will push for stronger laws that make it harder for these criminals to operate. Are you afraid of retaliation? Another journalist asked. Terrified, Chief Adeyemi said honestly, but more terrified of doing nothing. More terrified of my grandchildren growing up in a world where this kind of evil can thrive unchecked. The questions continued for over an hour. Then, just as they were wrapping up, a journalist in the back roasted up. Chief Adeyemi, are you aware that Shade Ogunlai was released on bail this morning? The room went silent. What? Detective Nwosu was already on her phone. Released 2 hours ago. Bail was set at 50 million naira. Someone paid it in cash. Tund felt his blood turn to ice. Who? Who posted bail? The paperwork says it was her brother. But Chief, I've done some research. Shade Ogunlai doesn't have a brother. The man who signed for her bail used the name Samuel Okoye, her real husband. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The network had resources they'd underestimated. Money, connections, and the ability to move quickly when threatened. We need to move, Detective Nwosu said urgently. Chief Adeyemi, your family needs protection now. But it was already too late. Tund's phone rang. His ex-wife, Chioma, her voice panicked. Tund, Dammy didn't come home from school. The headmistress said a woman picked her up, said she was your new assistant, that there was a family emergency. But I never authorized anyone. The phone slipped from Tund's fingers. 8-year-old Dammy, who had already seen too much violence, who had cried at the wedding as her world fell apart, was now in the hands of the people they'd exposed. My daughter, Tund whispered. They took my daughter. Chief Adeyemi's face went gray. Detective Nwosu was barking orders into her phone. But Amaminsa placed a gentle hand on Tund's arm. This is how they operate, she said quietly. This is how they maintain control. But Mr. Adeyemi, I've been tracking this network for 3 years. I know their patterns. I know how they think. We'll find her. Tund's phone buzzed with a new message. A video. Dammy sat in what looked like a nice living room, coloring in a book. She looked unharmed, but confused. Then the camera panned to show Shade, out of her wedding dress now, wearing casual clothes and looking completely at ease. Hello, Tund. Her voice came through the phone speaker. Your daughter is fine. She's eating ice cream and watching cartoons. She thinks she's at her aunt's house for a special treat. She has no idea she's leverage in a much larger negotiation. The video ended with another text. Asterisk will be in touch. Meanwhile, think carefully about that foundation you just announced. Think about how much your daughter's safety is worth. Asterisk. The hotel security evacuated the conference immediately. Within hours, Chief Adeyemi's entire family was under armed protection. But the damage was done. The network had sent a clear message: expose us, and we'll hurt what you love most. That night, in another secure location, Tan sat across from Detective Nwosu and Ama Minsa, staring at his phone as if he could will Dami to appear through the screen. "We'll find her," Detective Nwosu said. "We're tracking the video's metadata, checking security cameras near her school." "They've done this before," Alma interrupted. "In Ghana, when my uncle tried to press charges, they took his grandson, held him for 3 days until my uncle agreed to drop everything. The boy was returned physically unharmed, but traumatized. He still has nightmares." "What happened to your uncle?" "He had a heart attack 6 months later. The death certificate said natural causes, but I've always wondered." Tund looked at his father, who sat silently in the corner, looking older than his 65 years. "Papa, I'm sorry. I never thought they'd go after Dami. I never thought." "You did what was right," Chief Adeyemi said firmly. "And now we do what's necessary to get her back safely. Then we finish what we started." But as the hours ticked by with no word from the kidnappers, Tun began to understand the full scope of what they were fighting against. This wasn't just fraud. It was a sophisticated criminal enterprise with the resources and ruthlessness of an organized crime syndicate. At 2 a.m., his phone finally rang. Unknown number. Tund. A male voice this time, not Shade. "We need to talk about your daughter's future. And your father's. And yours. We need to talk about what happens when people interfere with business." The voice on the phone was calm, almost friendly. That made it more terrifying than any threat. "Mr. Adeyemi, my name is Marcus Chun. I represent the business interests that your family has recently disrupted. I'd like to propose a solution that benefits everyone." "Where's my daughter?" Tun demanded. "Safe. Comfortable. Watching her third Disney movie of the day and complaining that the ice cream selection isn't diverse enough. She's a charming child. It would be a shame if anything happened to her." Tun's hands clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "If you hurt her, why would we hurt her? She's worth far more to us, unharmed. She's leverage, Mr. Adeyemi. Currency in a negotiation that I hope will be brief and amicable." Detective Nwosu had already started tracing the call. She gestured frantically for Tund to keep him talking. "What do you want?" Tund forced himself to sound calm. "Simple things. First, your father holds a press conference tomorrow. He announces that today's allegations were exaggerated, that the stress of planning a wedding caused him to misunderstand some legitimate business transactions with Mr. Bello. That Ms. Ogunlai is a victim of false accusations, and he deeply regrets the public embarrassment. You want us to recant everything. I want you to remember that truth is a flexible concept in business. Your father's truth, our truth, they can coexist peacefully. What else? The Adeyemi Foundation for Financial Crime Prevention is canceled before it starts. Your father makes a generous donation to, shall we say, our preferred charity. 50 million naira should cover the disruption costs. You want us to pay you for trying to rob and kill my father. I want you to pay for the privilege of getting your daughter back and living quietly for the rest of your lives. Consider it a very expensive lesson in the wisdom of minding one's own business. And if we refuse?" The silence on the other end was long and heavy. When Marcus Chun spoke again, his friendly tone had vanished. "Mr. Adeyemi, I'm going to be very direct with you. In the past 5 years, 17 people across West Africa have interfered with our operations. 8 of them are dead. 5 are permanently disabled. 3 disappeared completely. Only one, just one, cooperated with us and lived to enjoy his retirement. You have 12 hours to decide which category you want to fall into." The line went dead. Tun stared at his phone, the weight of the decision crushing him. Detective Nwosu's tech team was already working on the trace, but she looked at him with sympathy. "That wasn't enough time to get a location," she said. "But we have something." The call routed through 3 countries before reaching you. "These people have serious resources." "What do I do?" Tund asked, looking between Detective Nwosu Minsa and his father. How do I choose between my daughter's life and stopping these monsters? Chief Adeyemi stood up slowly, walking to the window overlooking Lagos's glittering nighttime skyline. You don't choose, son, because there is no choice. We give them what they want. Papa. And then Chief Adeyemi continued, turning back with eyes that burned with determination. We destroy them anyway. But first we get Dami back. Minsa leaned forward. Chief Adeyemi, I understand your desperation, but these people don't keep their word. In Ghana, my uncle gave them everything they demanded. They returned his grandson, yes. But 6 months later, they came back for more. Once you show you can be manipulated, you become a permanent target. So what do you suggest? Tund asked. We negotiate, but we do it smart. We appear to give them what they want while actually setting a trap. Detective Nwosu nodded slowly. We have the resources now. After your press conference today, we've been contacted by Interpol, the FBI's International Division, and police forces from 6 African countries. Everyone wants to take down this network. We just need to keep them engaged long enough to locate your daughter. Over the next 8 hours, they built a plan. Chief Adeyemi would hold the recantation press conference as demanded, but it would be staged, designed to draw out members of the network. Meanwhile, every law enforcement resource available would be focused on finding Dami. But at 9 a.m., just as they were finalizing details, Tund received a photo that changed everything. Dami, still smiling, sitting at table. But in the background, visible through a window, was something distinctive, a uniquely painted building that Tund recognized immediately. That's Banana Island, he said, zooming in on the photo. That building with the blue and yellow facade. There are only 3 houses that have that view. I know because I used to visit a friend there. Detective Nwosu was already mobilizing tactical teams. If we move now, before the press conference, before they expect anything, they might panic and hurt Dami, Alma warned. Or they might not have time to react at all. Detective Nwosu countered. Chief Adeyemi, Mr. Adeyemi, this is your call. Do we wait and negotiate, or do we strike now? Tund looked at his father. The old man's face was drawn with exhaustion and worry, but his eyes were clear. My son, Chief Adeyemi said, I trusted the wrong people and nearly lost everything. Now I'm going to trust the right people. Detective Nwosu, do what you need to do. Bring my granddaughter home. The tactical operation was precise and swift. 3 houses on Banana Island were simultaneously raided at exactly 10:15 a.m. At the 3rd house, a sprawling mansion owned by a shell company traced to the Cayman Islands, they found Dami watching television, unharmed but confused. They also found Shade Ogunlai, Marcus Chun, whose real name was Chukwuma Obi, a Nigerian who'd been wanted by Interpol for 5 years, and 4 other members of the network's leadership. The arrests made international headlines. But the real story was what they found in the house's office. Detailed files on over 40 targets across Africa. Financial records showing the network had stolen more than 5 billion naira over 7 years. And most damning of all, a ledger of people who'd been eliminated for interfering with operations. When Tund was finally reunited with Dami, he held her so tightly she complained she couldn't breathe. She had no idea she'd been kidnapped. She thought she'd been at a special playhouse with nice people who let her eat unlimited ice cream. Daddy, why are you crying? She asked, wiping his tears with her small hand. Because I love you so much, baby. So much. At the police station, as Shade and the others were being processed, she asked to speak with Chief Adeyemi one final time. Against everyone's advice, he agreed. They met in an interview room, separated by bulletproof glass. Shade looked different now. No makeup, no elaborate hairstyle, no expensive clothes. She looked ordinary, which somehow made her crimes even more chilling. Why? Chief Adeyemi asked simply. Why me? Why any of us? Shade studied him for a long moment before answering. Because you had so much and were so easy to fool. Because lonely, wealthy men are the perfect targets, desperate for connection, eager to trust, willing to ignore red flags because they want so badly to believe they've found love again. Did you feel anything? Any guilt? Any remorse? I felt wealthy, she said flatly. I felt powerful. I felt like I was taking from people who had more than they needed and giving to myself and my family. My children are in the best schools. My husband and I own properties in 3 countries. We've built a life on your money and the money of people like you. And the people you killed? For the first time, something flickered across her face. Collateral damage. Most of them would have died soon anyway, old, sick, alone. We just accelerated the timeline. You're a monster. I'm a businesswoman, Shade corrected. A very successful one, until your son interfered. That's the only thing I regret, not identifying him as a threat sooner. We underestimated his love for you. That was our mistake. As Chief Adeyemi stood to leave, Shade called out one more time. Chief Adeyemi? This network is bigger than the people in this building. We're just one cell. There are others in other countries using other methods. You've won this battle, but the war is far from over. Watch your back. Watch your family. Because we have long memories and patient plans. 3 months later, the trial of Shade Ogunlai, also known as Shade Okie, Mercy Taiwo, Grace Okoro, and 5 other aliases, became the most watched legal proceeding in Nigerian history. Broadcast live across West Africa, it revealed the full scope of the network's operations. Prosecutors presented evidence of 13 murders, 47 cases of fraud totaling over 5 billion naira, and a sophisticated money laundering operation that involved banks in 7 countries. Ama Mensah testified about the cases in Ghana. Detective Nwosu presented the financial evidence. Ntund took the stand to describe finding his father's stolen millions and racing to stop the wedding before it was too late. But the most powerful testimony came from Chief Adeyemi himself. I'm a successful businessman, he told the court. I've negotiated deals worth billions. I've outsmarted competitors and built an empire. But I was completely fooled by this woman because she understood something fundamental about human nature. We all want to be loved. We all want to believe that someone sees us, values us, wants to be with us for who we are, not what we have. He looked directly at Shade, who sat emotionless at the defense table. She didn't just steal my money. She stole my ability to trust. She made me doubt every relationship, question every friendship, wonder if people love me or my wealth. That's the real crime here. Not the money, but the destruction of trust that holds families and society together. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Shade was sentenced to 45 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 20. Alhaji Musa received 35 years. Marcus Chun/Chukwuma Obi got life imprisonment for his role in multiple murders. But as Ama had warned, the network extended far beyond those arrested. Over the next year, Chief Adeyemi's foundation worked with law enforcement across Africa to identify and stop similar operations in Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and Ivory Coast. The foundation also provided support to victims' families, counseling, financial assistance, and legal help to recover stolen assets. Chief Adeyemi dedicated the rest of his life to this work, turning his personal tragedy into a mission to protect others. Tund rebuilt his career, eventually starting his own financial investigation firm that specialized in identifying fraud networks. His experience made him uniquely qualified to spot the warning signs that others missed. As for Dami, she grew up knowing that her father and grandfather were heroes who had stood up to evil people. She eventually became a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes, carrying on the family's mission into the next generation. Chief Adeyemi stood in his garden in Ikoyi, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. It was his 70th birthday, and despite everything he'd been through, he felt blessed. Papa, Dami, now 13, approached him with a wrapped present. This is for you. He opened it to find a framed photograph, the moment at the cathedral when Tund had burst through the doors. Someone in the congregation had captured it, and though the image showed chaos and fear, Chief Adeyemi saw something else in it now. He saw love, a son's love for his father, strong enough to risk everything. A family's love for each other, powerful enough to survive betrayal and emerge stronger. Why this photo? He asked Dami. Because it's the day our family fought back, she said. The day we showed that bad people don't win when good people stand up to them. Chief Adeyemi pulled his granddaughter into a hug, tears in his eyes. Later that evening, as the party continued around him, Tund approached his father. "Papa, I need to tell you something. I've been offered a position with Interpol, heading their African Financial Crimes Division. It would mean traveling a lot, being away from the family." "Take it," Chief Adeyemi said immediately. "But Papa..." "Tund, what happened to us happens to families every day across this continent. You have the knowledge, the experience, and the passion to stop it. How can I ask you to stay when you could save hundreds of families from what we went through? I was afraid you'd be disappointed." "Disappointed?" Chief Adeyemi laughed. "My son, the day you burst through those cathedral doors covered in blood and clutching evidence that saved my life, that was the proudest moment of my life. Not when you graduated university, not when you made your first million, but when you chose to do what was right even though it was terrifying and dangerous. Take the job. Change the world. I'll be here when you come home." They embraced, father and son, survivors of betrayal who had transformed their trauma into purpose. That night, as Chief Adeyemi prepared for bed, he looked at the framed photograph one more time. Then he looked at another frame beside it, a picture of his late wife, smiling at him across the years. "I almost betrayed your memory," he whispered to her image. "I almost let that woman destroy everything we built. But our son saved me. Our family saved me. And now we're helping save others." He could almost hear her voice in his mind. "Asterisk, that's my husband. That's the man I married. Strong enough to admit weakness, brave enough to accept help, and wise enough to turn pain into purpose. Asterisk. I miss you," he said. "But I'm okay now. We're all okay." And for the first time in 5 years, since the day his beloved wife had died and left him vulnerable to predators like Shade, Chief Adeyemi felt truly at peace. The network had been dealt a devastating blow. 43 arrests across 6 countries. Over 3 billion naira in recovered assets. Dozens of families saved from the fate that had nearly destroyed the Adeyemis. It wasn't over. Shade had been right about that. Other networks existed. Other predators hunted vulnerable people. But now there were people fighting back. People like Tund, like Amma, like Detective Nwosu. People who understood that the only way evil triumphs is when good people do nothing. And the Adeyemi family would never again do nothing. In a maximum security prison in Kirikiri, Shade Ogunlai sat in her cell, writing letters to her children in London. They had disowned her after the trial, changed their names, tried to distance themselves from her crimes. But she kept writing anyway, maintaining the fiction that she had done it all for them, that she was a victim of circumstances, that the world had been cruel, and she had simply fought back the only way she knew how. In her mind, she would always be the victim. She would never acknowledge the lives destroyed, the trust shattered, the families torn apart by her calculated cruelty. But history would remember her differently, not as a victim, but as a cautionary tale. A reminder that the greatest betrayals often come wrapped in the warmest embraces, wearing the kindest smiles, speaking the sweetest words. And history would remember the Adeyemi family too, not as victims who stayed silent, but as survivors who fought back and won. Because that's what heroes do. They stand up even when they're terrified. They speak truth even when silence is easier. They fight for justice even when the cost is high. And sometimes, just sometimes, they burst through cathedral doors at exactly the right moment to save the people they love.